Alrighty, Adam. Thanks a lot for coming. More like we came to your place.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is what's this place called? Eastern
Tea Bar.
Eastern Tea Bar.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Tell us about it.
So it started in 2019. I wanted to create a future-proofed name, so I was originally just selling online, but I wanted to open up a tea bar. Originally the plan was to open up at the Seaport Market in Halifax, but they denied me because it wasn't local products, which is kind of garbage because they have a lot of places that aren't local, but either way. So they denied me, so I was online for until 2022, where I eventually opened up a tea bar. So
that's nice.
Yeah, future-proof name.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So it was online before. How did you find transitioning to, actually having a spot to have tea?
A lot better. It was always meant to be that I would brew for people, not so much online. I mean, I was forced to do that because that was just what happened, but I didn't really want to be online necessarily. So it was definitely a good, easy transition for me because I wanted to do that. So yeah.
That's good. Yeah. That's good to hear. So clearly you like tea. How long have you been into the tea industry?
Exact timeline, not quite sure because I can't remember the year exactly, but I think it was probably around 2014 when I started getting into it, maybe 2015, really getting into it. And that was when my brother went to Korea. He came back from Korea, but before that he went to Myanmar in Southeast Asia, and he brought me back some tea because I was already drinking like tea bag tea and I was really into that, but he brought me back loose tea that was green, and I'd never tried a green tea before, so I was just drinking Tetley tea. Anyway, then I kind of fell in love with that tea. At first I hated it, then I loved it, then I wanted to find out more about it, so I just fell into the rabbit hole.
Well, it sounds very nice. Yeah. So it's been like everyday thing since 2014.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, so that's quite an adventure. Tell us about how you got to actually opening a business after trying the tea for the first time.
So what happened? So I started falling in love with tea, and then I started falling deeply in love with tea, and I knew that I wanted to do something. Well, sorry, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, per se. I was going to high school at the time, and, you have to figure out what your life plan is going to be. So I thought, maybe I could open up a flower shop at one point, because I don't know why. I just thought it'd be cool. And then I thought, well, I'll go to university to maybe learn how to grow tea plants, and see if they could grow in Nova Scotia. Okay. Yeah. They can't grow in Nova Scotia, so that's a bit of a spoiler alert. But either way, after doing a little bit of research, I was like, well, maybe I can make it work through some kind of means, and I want to go to plant science school so I can learn about that. So I signed up. I was accepted to Dal Agricultural Campus, and I was going to go there to learn and be in their dorms and stuff like that because it's up in Truro. But it was $20,000 a semester, whatever the hell it is, so it's very expensive to be up in dorms there. So I decided that I would do my first year here in Halifax, and just because it's mainly like general science courses, calculus, biology, chemistry, so I can do that all at the campus here. And so I worked with them online, and they said, yeah, that was totally fine. And then I did all that, did my first year, hated it, nearly failed, if not failed some courses, and decided that it wasn't for me. Then I talked to an academic advisor, moved me on to sociology, which I had a plan to work with developing tea markets and bring them onto a globalized scale. Okay. And so I did a semester of that, hated that, thought it was very boring, dry stuff. So then I quit school altogether, did a year at Starbucks, general working and stuff, and then decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna make my own thing, so I decided to open up a tea bar, and that's how this started. So yeah,
that sounds like a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's pretty inspiring, because I feel education that we're offered at Dal especially is far not for everyone. Very specific and very not versatile, at least not as much as I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
So I think you did a very good choice. This is a cool place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about it? So there's way more than just a tea bar here, isn't there?
Yeah, so when I first opened up, it was just strictly tea, and my brand is just tea. But the thing is that rent is very high, not just residential, but for commercial real estate here in Halifax as well. So I knew that I wouldn't be able to rent anywhere with my income, and I don't have a loan or anything like that. I actually now have a loan, but I didn't have a loan then. So I was like, how am I going to do this with the income of a part-time Starbucks, well, full-time Starbucks worker, right? So I decided that I wanted to. I ended up going to NSCC Business Administration program, and through that I worked with my teachers to create some canvases, some business models, and then workshopped them with different people and kind of worked it all out, that I would rent out space to other vendors and they would be able to pay me so I could kind of offset the cost of renting a huge space for tea. So that's what ended up happening. So it evolved into a bit of a tea market. It has a vintage market inside. There's records here, there's clothing, there's art, there's kind of everything that you can possibly imagine. And it's focused more on vintage because I was going to a lot of vintage markets at the time. Just happened to be what I got into. And I was serving tea there. So I knew a lot of the people were looking for spaces of their own, but they couldn't afford a huge space. So if we were to make it affordable, then they'd be able to try their dream of owning their own vintage shop. So I just did that. I basically offered a low-cost, rentable space for people to sell their goods.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Exactly.
Oh my
exactly.
god. Actually, very smart. Never thought about opening multiple shops in one.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird idea. Not to say that it's unique in any way. There's lots of places, especially nowadays, I'm starting to see them pop up more and more. Like cafes are opening up with a side business inside. I know that what was one that I was seeing just up on Cornwallis Street there. One was opening up. There's two shops in one. Maven down the street, they actually have one space that they cut in half, and so there's two different shops, but it's actually one retail space that they leased. So yeah, there's a lot of shops that are starting to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. You have quite a lot of items here. So the records, let's just talk about this space, because this place is very nice. I find that there isn't a lot of spaces like this in Halifax. Austin could probably agree that you can just come and sit down and just not do anything. Think library, somewhat like that, but it's still very crowded. Yeah, what I'm trying to say, there's a lack of art spaces like this. How did you come up with making just a lounge for people to sit and, have tea and listen to music?
So it's a bit of a weird situation that I've got going on here, because through me doing, operating a business for the first time, there's a lot of legal things that you have to work out. So permits and all that, stuff you have to figure out. So when I was opening this place up, it was kind of a spur of the moment idea. I had saved up a lot of money when I started working at the Cold Beer store over across in Dartmouth, and I wanted to open up a location myself. So it was kind of a spur of the moment. I found a place, I thought this was perfect, so I reached out to the landlord, we started getting going, and all of a sudden I realized that, well, when I'd already sunk all my money into the place, that you're not allowed seating on the top floor of a building. So this Eastern Tea Bar is on the top floor. Ever since 2020, because of accessibility laws, you're not allowed to open a restaurant on a place that wasn't previously a restaurant with inaccessible, routes. So at that point, I have no problem with the law being there, but I didn't realize it. And my problem was that the government didn't make it at all known that this was a law. I mean, through all their pamphlets, through all their PDFs on how to open a restaurant, all these things, they never once mentioned it because they were all out of date. They weren't up to date to 2020. So here I was invested all of my money into this place, and I couldn't have any seating. So I worked with the government, and they said I could have a little bit of seating. So that's what it came to, a very small little room like this and a tiny little bar up front. I was allowed to open up a tiny bit of seating. Now, on top of that, we were looking to open up different spaces with different vendors, and this was originally going to be, the space that we're in right now, was originally going to be for pop-up shops. So for example, like every weekend they could have a shop kind of thing. But we were just starting out, and not a lot of people got the memo. I mean, marketing is very difficult, so it just wasn't really popping off. And so I thought, okay, well, I know I can open up a little bit more seating, and my dad has a huge record collection, so he said, okay, well, how about I help you out, and we can try to like figure out a way to like do this. And so we thought about records, and then so we ended up getting a bunch of records from estates, and there we go. So you can come in, play your record, drink your tea, and just lounge in the area.
That's very cool. Very vibey. When we came in, it was very nice record was playing, almost Fallout atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, we got a lot of like 1950s, 1960s records. So I think that one that you were listening to is like a country record from like 1950s or something. So that's very on par. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, quite a lot of different things. You have a favorite out of all these?
Out of the records? Well, I really like that Arena Santor one. I like this tea. So yeah, the Arena Santor one I found the other day. She's a Polish pop singer, but I mean, it says pop from all of the online research that I can do, but it's not. I would never consider it pop. It's more like jazz, so I guess that was popular music at one point, right? So, it's kind of like easy listening jazz, and her voice is absolutely gorgeous. I don't understand a word she's saying, but that's okay. So I really like that record, and the Dixieland with a Twist, the Carpetbaggers up there. That one's pretty fun too. It actually has like a burlap sack for the cover, so it's kind of a weird like piece. Yeah. So those two I'd say. I also have some the photographer, sorry, by oh god, that minimalist composer, what's his name? Lives up in Cape Breton. Philip Glass.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I have one of those too. So that's kind of a cool one. Although that record is very weird. If you've ever listened to Philip Glass's electronic stuff, it's strange stuff. So
it's good.
Yeah.
It's good in some way.
Yeah, in some ways.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm sure there are people who enjoy Philip Glass too.
Yeah.
This seems to be a very diverse place to come to listen to music. Like a little bit of everything, I'd say. Yeah,
I try to like. At first, we were kind of getting all the pop stars in, so I think we had Bruce Springsteen's for rock and roll and stuff like that. We had, Bob Marley. We had like the classics. The Beatles went really quickly and stuff like that. But that stuff, I still try to get it in because obviously those are big sellers with people. But I don't find them as interesting as some of the other stuff. So a lot of the stuff sits here, and it's actually way more interesting, I find, than any of that other thing. So my kind of mantra is come in, pick up a record you've never seen before, and play it and see what happens, because all of these records I've listened to myself, and I love all of them. They're all very good in their own ways, especially the Dixieland and jazz selection that we have. It's very interesting stuff that you don't hear a lot of today. So yeah, we even have like polka music and a lot of like world music as well, so pretty cool. Yeah.
That's very nice. It's a very good selection.
Yeah.
Especially goes well with the tea.
Yes.
So what kind of tea are we having there?
So right now we are drinking Secret Garden. I can't remember what year exactly. This has just been in my collection for a little while. Decided I'd try it out today. It's a little bit of Halifax storage because I've had it for a couple of years now. But it's a raw pour tea. It's a bit young, like I said. Raw pour tea isn't considered old in my books until, well, at least aged in my books until about 10 years. So this is still pretty young. So that's what we're drinking today.
That's very nice, very fruity. So we have quite a selection here than this one here. Quite a lot of teas on the shelves I've seen. Do you mind just giving us a quick breakdown where they come from and what they look like?
Yeah, sure. So what we specialize here at Eastern Tea Bar, you can open up a tea shop in Halifax and people will go to it because tea is tea, but the thing is we wanted to highlight the fact that what people think is tea actually isn't tea. So we only do true teas from Camellia sinensis, which is the tea plant. So if you have something with caffeine, like you're drinking a red rose, that's technically tea. No, it's not good quality tea, but it's tea. Chamomile, for example, is not tea. It's chamomile. Mint is mint. Those aren't teas. Those are considered tea sands. So what we wanted to do here was make sure that everything was from Camellia sinensis, true tea, and we brew it in the Gongfu style, which is just connoisseur's way, kind of approach to drinking tea. We mainly specialize on teas from China. That's due to personal preference. That's what I drink. That's where Kung Fu comes from. So that's just what I drink. But we also have some teas from Nepal, because I ended up getting a connection with someone from Nepal. And then just recently, we're now experimenting with some matcha and some Japanese green teas as well. So when I say we have teas from China, I mean we have teas from mainland, and we also have teas from Taiwan. A lot of my teas are oolongs from Taiwan, because that's probably my biggest, that's my favorite category of tea. I find it's very varied, even though it's a very specialized group, and it's very sweet and fruity and all the things that I look forward to. So in short, Nepal, China, Taiwan, and hopefully Japan soon.
Wow, quite a selection. So I remember last time I was at the bar, I've seen a box that said Milky Way on it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so let me just pour myself a little bit more tea. The Milky Way is a sample box that we created and launched, I think, yesterday. And so it's actually a really fun idea. So essentially what you have is 4 teas. All of them are identical. They're identical in every way. They were produced by the same producer, same farmer, same cultivar, same harvest, same everything. The only difference is that they were roasted in 4 different ways. So we have a tea with no roast, light roast, medium roast, and heavy roast. And so you can taste the different roasts that are given to these teas, and you can kind of see how the final character is changed based on that roast. To explain what a milk oolong is, it sounds weird, maybe even some people consider it gross, but milk oolong is, there's no milk added. So like I said, this is simply tea from Camellia sinensis. People call it milk oolong because it's particularly creamy. So when you drink it, it's just creamy, so people call it that. So it's actually the Jinchuan cultivar is considered in English to be the milk oolong tea. People always tout about there being potentially a fake milk oolong tea. I've never once come across a fake milk oolong tea. I don't know how you can even make a fake milk oolong tea. I don't really know. Apparently people say they add milk powder to it. I don't think that's at all true. I don't think there's a worry about it. But anyway, anything from the Jinchuan cultivar is considered milk oolong in English. Jinchuan cultivar and produced in a way that would be milk oolong.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds rather nice.
Yeah.
So would that be kind of a trend that we see right now? People prefer to drink a bit more roasted stuff rather than, greener oolongs? Yeah.
So back in the day, teas were charcoal roasted. Especially oolong teas were charcoal roasted. So green teas would just go bad over time. When I say they go bad, it's like referring to the fact that they go stale. They're not actually bad. You can still drink them. They're just not the same tea that you looked for when you first got it. Oolong teas were produced with a charcoal roast, most of them were anyway, in order to keep the tea. So a tea with a charcoal roast actually can be wrapped in paper, bamboo, rice paper, anything, and it can be kept and stored. It's actually not, like for example, rock oolong teas sometimes are stored in jars away until they're able to be sold like a year and a half later, because it's actually better with time to let that roast sit. Then with the popularity of high mountain oolongs, which were unroasted or at least lightly roasted, very lightly roasted, there became this trend in very green oolong teas. So dongdings became very green. Tiaguanyin, very green. Those were all roasted teas beforehand. And so I call them the modern style. A lot of people now are calling them the modern style, but they're just called dongding. And some people refer to it as the traditional style, which is the one that is roasted. So it's kind of funny, the kind of the debate there. But nowadays, this is anecdotal. Just personally, I'm starting to see that a lot more Taiwanese teas anyway are starting to be roasted, not just a little bit and not charcoal roasted, but electric roasted and very heavy in their roasts. So almost to the point where it's like tasting coffee. It's not as thick as coffee, it's not as dark as coffee, but it's very roasted, and you can kind of get that roasty coffee note from it. I don't exactly know what is driving that. The pendulum always swings, so maybe they're done with green teas over there, the green oolong teas. But I'm finding, anyway, anecdotally, that it's getting heavier in Taiwan, the roasts, at least that are getting exported to the West.
I see. So would you say that this method of making tea kind of not only ruins the tradition of making tea, but also the taste? So would that be detrimental for the future?
Did you say ruins? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hard topic to have a real opinion on, because whether or not it ruins the tradition of tea, the whole point is that you're experimenting and moving forward. So really nothing is ruining the tradition of tea, because at the end of the day, whatever tea is being created will add on to the history of tea and will be the tradition of tea. However, that being said, certainly charcoal roasting is starting to fall a bit to the wayside. Not just starting, actually, it's already fallen to the wayside, and a lot of people actually don't know how to charcoal roast necessarily anymore. Because you can't really blame them. It takes a lot more time to do charcoal roasting. It's way easier to electric roast the tea, and especially since it was green oolongs that were being so popular back in the day, there was no reason to know how to charcoal roast. So this is an overall trend in not just tea but agriculture in general, as humans become more sophisticated, and maybe sophisticated is the wrong word, but a general trend, especially in developing economies, is people from rural areas, especially the young, moving to the cities and urban areas to get urban tech jobs and get an education, and they generally don't want to move back to the farm. This is a trend in agriculture across the industry, across the world. This isn't just in tea, but certainly in tea we are seeing this, where a lot of rural areas are left with an older population, and they're unable to produce the tea properly, for sure. And when I say properly, I mean they just genuinely don't have the physical capabilities to tend to a farm. So what that leaves is, I don't necessarily think it's worse tea. It's a different tea. In a lot of cases, it actually means that there's going to be less pesticides and chemical fertilizers and stuff, because they're just leaving the trees to grow. So that's great. But in some cases, there's also, they don't want to do the weeding or anything, so they will put in pesticides and chemical fertilizers. So anyway, that's a long-winded way to say that maybe. Essentially, with the tradition changing, it's not a bad thing, it's just changing. Yeah.
I see. It is quite almost sad that people move to cities to have tech jobs rather than staying on a farm. What do you think will prompt people to stay on the farm and keep the family business going rather than going into tech?
So I mean, this is a bit out of my wheelhouse, but I think that things that can make people stay, for one, would be government incentives to make sure that the young are empowered and able to stay in these areas, because the reason they're moving out is because they can get a better quality of life in the cities. They can send money back to the rural farms. They can do a lot of things. They can move up in life in the class system that we have. So it would make sense that the government should aim for equality in rural areas and provide education in those areas and incentives to keep those people to stay.
Yeah. I see. So just improving the quality of life in general.
Yeah,
that would be nice. So with all those farms emptying out, people moving to the city, have you ever considered moving into one of those empty farms?
Oh God. Have I ever dreamed of moving into a farm in Taiwan, China, even into Japan? Sure. I don't speak the language very well. It would be very difficult. But I've definitely dreamed of it. Maybe when I have a little bit more money and this place has taken off a little bit more, maybe I can start dreaming a little harder about that. But for right now, no, certainly not. I mean, I think actually, to point to that point, Camellia sinensis, which is in Montreal, they recently bought some farms in, I think, Kenya, maybe somewhere in Africa. It might have been India, actually. I don't think it was in China, but it was, I think, somewhere in India, maybe Africa, which is outside of my wheelhouse of teas. But I believe they have their own farms now, and they have their own processing facility, and they are like experimenting with tea growing in those regions. So
That sounds so nice.
Yeah.
Oh my god. You have a constant provider of tea.
Yeah.
It's your farm.
yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's a dream come true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, it'll be lovely. Let's see. So, is this your main occupation right now?
Yep. I still also work over at the Moosehead Cold Beer Store, because hard to give that one up. I made a lot of money through tips there, so it was pretty hard to give that one up. But this is pretty much my main thing. I work just one shift over there on my day off here, so yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
See. That sounds very nice.
Yeah.
This seems like a very cool place to be too. Do you think people, find this place easily? And how do people usually get here?
So now you're asking the real questions, the tough questions here. So, do people find this place? Absolutely not. No matter how much I scream at them, it's very difficult to get people up here. And that's because it's up. Well, at least I hope it's not maybe it's my pride speaking, but that's just because there's stairs involved. I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that they don't like tea. No. I think it's just the stairs. So one, we're kind of a hole in the wall. Maybe you can get some shots of like the outside to make people like see what we're talking about. But like, it's pretty much like there is 2 stores next to me that have beautiful window displays, and then there's a very unassuming door where you can walk up the stairs, and it looks almost like office buildings or something that you come up here. It's just supposed to be like some kind of office space. So a lot of people just walk on by. We've tried different things. We painted the door white against the black background, so we figured that might pop. We had the stairs have like twinkling fairy lights going all the way up to draw people in. We have a sign there. We're trying different things, but for the most part, I think that people just can't find us. Not to say that they're not necessarily looking, but on top of that, 99% of business is marketing. And this hurts me as someone who is a product guy, who loves the product that they're selling, who is like so passionate about the product. It doesn't matter, and people don't really care. At the end of the day, what people are looking for is to be marketed towards. So that's kind of the grim reality of the world. But you could be selling a pretty bad product, and as long as you marketed it well, people are going to buy it for a fair bit of money. And that's kind of annoying, but marketing costs a lot of money and takes a lot of creativity and knowledge, and it's something that I'm learning, but I'm very bad at. And a lot of that to do is me just, my own ego being hurt and my own unwillingness to want to market when I have a product that I know is great. People should just know. It should be just in their heads. But at the end of the day, marketing is something that I really need to work on, and that's what gets people in the door. People don't know about the place. They don't even know that they don't like it or that they do like it, because they don't know about the place at all. So that's what needs to get people in the door. Yeah.
I'm sure that people would like it if they knew about it a bit more. And yeah, it took me a couple tries to find it too. Yeah. But I think you're on the right path. Like, you know what you need to work on. Mm-hmm. You're trying different things, especially you said with the facade, like with the door and the lights, make it a bit more visible. Mm-hmm. I think it's all there. It's all there. It just needs a little time. Yeah. I think you're in the right direction. I hope this will help a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. People wanna listen, come by here. It's very cool.
Yeah. Any listeners, come to Eastern Tea Bar, 2093 Gottingen Street.
Yeah. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Austin, how are you doing on my parking time? 30? Cool, thank you. Yeah, the thing is the parking everywhere in Halifax in general.
Where did you guys park?
Right outside.
Right outside?
Yeah.
It's not 3 o'clock yet.
No.
Oh, they don't ticket there until 3.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they don't, if it says an hour parking, you guys are fine. Don't worry about that. They don't ticket till 3.
Oh, that's good to know.
3 p.m. though, they will be right on your ass. They'll tow you.
Yeah, I stopped there the other day to drop someone off, Not even for a second.
Yeah.
I didn't even like put the on parking.
Yeah.
I already got honked at.
Yeah.
The bus driver screamed at me.
Oh yeah.
That was crazy.
3 p.m. to 6 p.m. it's a bus lane. So yeah.
Yeah, I figured it's kind of hard to see. So you have
Yes.
like free parking before that, and
Yeah.
after that it's no stop sign.
Yeah.
It takes me like a couple minutes to read through all the signs on.
Oh, I
on
know.
the
It's
wall.
like there's like 3 or 4 signs there, and you're like, okay. Got ticketed the other day because it was a street cleaning and we didn't notice.
Oh,
Like, shit.
no, snow day.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it was just happened to be street
Oh, just
cleaning.
street
day.
cleaning?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So.
Oh, tough times we live in.
I know.
I find that like in Halifax that really breaks, a lot of incentive to come to, to downtown, especially from Bedford. Is that there's nowhere to leave your car.
Someday we'll get that ferry.
Yeah.
Maybe the rails.
Hopefully soon. The rails, oh my god, the dream come true.
Yeah.
No. Austin shakes his head. Hopefully in the future.
You don't believe, Austin? You don't believe in the?
No. Yeah, I don't know. Hope for the best.
Yeah.
Oh well, thanks for this.
Yeah.
It's developing the flavor too. It's very
Yes.
floral and I'll say like earthy a little bit too.
Yeah, it is. It is a little earthy. I think a lot of my teas are starting to get that similar earthiness, and I think that's just maybe my Halifax storage or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But a lot of them have that very similar. I can almost start to taste it now. But this tea I found is always very like light, very light tasting. Not very punchy like a lot of raw pours that I have. So it's nice sometimes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous. Very good. Let's see. You think living in Halifax and storing your product here makes it taste any different than any other place?
Oh, 100%. Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I made a joke about that on my Instagram the other day. They consider like Malaysia or like Hong Kong storage. Those are like wet storage areas. They're very humid. Taiwan storage is like super, super wet. Excuse me. Kunming storage is considered dry. Kunming is not so dry compared to Halifax. So I said, what does Halifax storage count as, super dry or something? We get down to 27 humidity here, 24 humidity.
Oh, okay.
It gets very humid, very dry here, and we're talking like pu'er tea should be kept between like at lowest 60% humidity, maybe 55 or something if you want to age it well. So Halifax doesn't have that. My Pomodoro, which is a pu'er humidor, it's kind of a mixture of those things. Anyway, humidor, for those who don't know, is just like what you keep your cigars in to keep the humidity high for the cigars aging. So Pomodoro is for pu'er. I have like bottles of water, and like I don't have those humidity packs. I should probably get some, but bottles of water work fine. And I get it up to around 60 degrees, but it's quite difficult to even get it that high because everywhere else is so dry. Like my mouth is dry when I'm talking. Mm-hmm. So that's just, it's going to be more oxidation that we're relying on in terms of aging pu'er teas rather than fermentation because it's not as humid. And so it's going to result in a very different taste altogether. And it's going to take a lot longer to age the teas. So 5 years in wet storage is going to taste a lot different than 5 years in Kunming dry storage. And it's going to taste vastly different between Hong Kong and Halifax in those 5 years.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
That's pretty peculiar to think about it. I didn't give it much thought before this.
Yeah, but even then, there's a fun side note and perk to being in Halifax, and is that oolong teas are actually benefited by aging in dry climates.
Oh, interesting.
Because they're not fermenting, they're oxidizing. So what you're looking for oolong teas is actually a very dry climate. So Taiwan, which makes these oolong teas, is actually not the ideal place to age them. Instead, you want a dry place. So like Taiwan, a lot of those teas from oolong teas that age get this like very sour thing going on. And so they usually re-roast the teas to like freshen them up. But if you were to age them in a dry climate, here in Halifax, you don't need to re-roast them. It actually develops a lot of intricacy as it ages, in my opinion, anyway.
Oh wow! So it's kind of two-sided coin here. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's like greener oolongs are should be more popular here then?
So greener oolongs don't age very well. It's the charcoal roasted ones that really age. I think that people should be getting more into those charcoal roasted oolongs because they can keep forever and they will improve with age. Well, at least if it's a good tea, it'll improve with age, hopefully. So yeah, that's a big thing. The first thing to remember, if anyone is like, oh, this is kind of cool and I should age my tea or think about aging tea, first of all, get good tea. Come to Eastern Tea Bar. Secondly, you have to make sure that the tea is stored away from any fragrances. So don't put it in a spice cupboard. That's a huge common mistake with people like putting their tea, even if they're not aging it. They're just like, oh, I'm going to grab it because my spice cupboard is above my kettle. Remove the spices or remove the tea. Because what's going to happen is tea is very... takes a lot of fragrances in, and so it's just going to taste like cinnamon if you have cinnamon next to it. I know of some shops that I've tried their teas and I'm going, oh, they blend their own teas or something because I can taste cinnamon in this, and this is just cinnamon tea. So that's something that's really a problem. So make sure that you keep it away from spices. Don't put it in like for example, like matcha. Some people put it in the fridge. Don't put it in a fridge that's like right next to like the salsa. It's gonna taste pretty gross afterwards. So yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
So, would you consider that a benefit in certain cases? For example, if you want to infuse your tea with certain flavors, would that be like a process to do that? So,
there's a little bit of experimentation, at least in what I'm doing, from that. So, obviously, teas take on the aromas that they're immediately around, and so I decided that with my tea flower sack, which is a white tea, white teas are very delicate, but this one is a shomei, so it's like a shomei bamudan. So it's to break that down, there's silver needle, bamudan, shomei, and gongmei are like the 4 grades. Silver needle or baihao yinzhen is all buds of the leaf. So it's very delicate. It takes a long time to make because it's only the buds of the tea plant. Baimudan is mainly buds with some leaf. Shomei is mainly leaf with some buds, and gongmei is all leaves. So that's the picking standards for those. My flower sack is shomei with a little bit more buds than normal. And because it's shomei, it's a lot maltier because the leaves have, usually when you add leaf, it's not as delicate as just buds. So it's a little bit more body to it, so it can withstand. So what I do is I put them in these burlap sacks, which has that jute taste, smell to it. And what I've noticed, since they're Dragon Balls, the outside of the ball will start to smell like burlap sack, but the inside, when you start brewing it more, especially in a Gong Fu session, it will like really transform from that burlap jute taste, and then it starts to like, the jute taste starts to join in and mingle with the flavors of the white tea, which is usually like hay notes, and so it really works well together. And then eventually you get solely the tea without really much of the jute flavor on there anymore. So it's a kind of a weird way to scent the teas that I've been trying.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow. Makes me thirsty. Gorgeous. So who comes up with the names for all of these teas on your shelf?
It's pretty much just me, but it sometimes, like my girlfriend Kaylee, she does all the artwork for the teas. So we'll usually bounce some ideas off of each other, and a lot of it is making sure that the names aren't accidentally sexual. Because you'd be surprised how many times you're going, oh, that's a great name. Well, it rhymes with this, and that's a sexual position. So at one point we were thinking of a name called Golden Hour. And yeah, as we can see what that, would be close to. So we changed that one to Goldmine. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Didn't know it was so intricate.
Yeah, it's a lot of just making sure that you're not, making some kind of sexual innuendo with your tea names. Sometimes you might want that, but not all the time.
I see. Well, that's news for me.
Yeah.
Something you don't really know, if you're not in the industry. Now I can't see any packaging differently. I don't think.
Yeah. So we work on like naming conventions. Usually what happens is, I'll sample a tea, and it depends on how much of a sample I get. Sometimes, a vendor, or like when I say vendor, I mean like a producer or scout, will send me like, 8 grams. And that's fine. But sometimes, and most times, it's like, 50 or 100 grams, and I get to really sit with the tea. And in those circumstances, in the 8-gram ones, if I decided that I really liked the tea and I do want to buy it, it's kind of rare that I do that on an 8-gram sample, but either way, then I will get the tea and decide a name after the fact. But if it's like, for example, one that had 50 or 100 grams, I'll decide the name beforehand, and usually, we'll be tasting notes and we'll be going, oh, this one's kind of like chocolatey, it has like a little bit of strawberries. So now we're like starting to think of like, okay, chocolate with strawberry cake, like something like that, like starting to put these notes together, and then we want to kind of paint an image, and then we want to create a name that kind of goes with that image that Kaylee is drawing to put on the packaging.
Sounds like a very artistic, sophisticated process.
Yeah, it's very fun. I wouldn't say it's very sophisticated because it's a lot of going back and forth on sexual innuendos, but it's definitely fun. Yeah.
That's nice. I remember the other tea I had here was circus peanut.
Yes.
Which is pretty interesting. I never realized you can make tea taste so nutty without any, implementations.
So the funny thing about circus peanuts is that's a milk oolong tea. So it's a milk oolong tea with that one's a charcoal roast. It has a charcoal roast on it, and that roast with kind of a milky tea, like that cultivar with that roast on it, just ends up being kind of nutty. And so it really does, like when you smell it and you taste it, it actually does smell and taste like peanuts, kind of. But I get that question a lot. Does it have any peanuts in it? And there's no nuts or anything in my teas. It's simply tea. But that naming convention, maybe next time I can go, maybe this, don't say peanuts in it next time, because I get a lot of people going, I don't know if I can have it because of peanuts. And it's like, oh, no, it doesn't have any peanuts. So that was, I can learn from that one next time. Yeah,
I see. Yeah, peanut is kind of like a red flag.
Yeah, a bit of a taboo.
Yeah. It's more for people who, affected by them.
Yeah, of course.
For me, it was like interesting.
Yeah.
Never had nuts in my tea before.
Yeah.
I'd be definitely down.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good to know that there's no nuts in anything. Speaking.
That's another sexual innuendo, by the way.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Stop it.
It's like,
it's hard enough. That's all I think about now from then on. Speaking of like food items, there's a bunch of very tasty snacks you have going on. So is there a chef that comes in to do them? What's
yeah.
happening?
So his name is Liam. Last name I forget. I should probably know. Something. Anyway, and he's really nice. He's got his own little side gig going on, and his name is Wild Raisin is the name of that. And he's going to hopefully someday do markets and sell at markets, but for right now he just sells to me. So he'll bring in stuff and he'll come in and make the stuff, and he's very inventive, very creative with the stuff he does. The hazelnut crisp cookies are amazing. They're just so everything you could ever want in a cookie. Oh my god, I love those. But also the truffles that he does. He comes up with these really. He learned how to make chocolate when he went to NSCC. He was like a chocolate chef or whatever, chocolatier. So he's really skilled at it, and he comes up with these amazing ideas for foraging local ingredients in Nova Scotia and infusing them into the chocolates. So we did have at one point an apple brandy bayberry truffle with a 65% Mexican dark chocolate. And oh my god, it was amazing. And the apple brandy was from a local distillery, and the bayberry was something he foraged from around the coast of Nova Scotia. So it's not these ingredients you don't really expect to taste much. Bayberry, I'd never even heard of it. Sweet fern we used in a truffle once. So he's just incredibly inventive, and his stuff really pans out, and it goes so well with the teas. And so we're trying to create this experience for people where they can try things that they haven't tried before, and in a way that they haven't tried it before. So tea, like a really high quality oolong tea, for example, with a sweet fern truffle is what we try to do, and it's really good, and they pair really well together. So
they do. They taste so good. It's just unironically one of the best chocolates I had in a while.
Oh, I know.
We're getting some on the way out, Austin. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very rare you see truffle, made this well. Mm-hmm. It's very juicy, very flavorful, not dry at all. A little hard on the outside, which really keeps the texture going. And when you get to the inside, it's so juicy and almost runny. It's still delicious.
These ones have Nova Scotia cranberry in the center of them, and they're kind of sour with the chocolate. Oh, it's really good. Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Does Liam have an online shop or?
I don't think so. He does. He started an Instagram, and I believe that it has one follower, which is me. He's not really much for the online stuff, but he's going to be hopefully soon. I haven't spoken to him about this in a little while, but he was planning on opening his shop, stall in a marketplace. When I say marketplace, I mean like a weekend market or like a farmer's market kind of thing. I don't know what his idea on that is anymore, but he will be doing it presumably soon. So, yeah.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to see more of his creations.
Oh yeah, he has like a lot more. Apricot jelly and like a butter cookie. Like, oh my god. He's very awesome. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Alrighty. You have quite a community here going on. A lot of people. What's the? Is there a thrift store just up the hallway? Is that part of this place as well?
Like the one right over there?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so yeah, so everyone here, pretty much everyone. So there's me. I sell tea. I also sell the records. Then there is FX Vintage is like antique, not really antique, but more like vintage. Started in Pyrex, but I find a lot of like glassware and stuff like that. Miss Elliott's Vintage is more like it's varied. A lot of clothing, mainly women's. Actually, I think only women's clothing, from roughly 1950s to about 1990s. Then there is Rocco's Relics, which is a lot of very colorful glassware and collections, some Pyrex as well. Penelope's Vintage is clothing, actually was up on, I think, Cornwallis Street, or maybe Kennard Street, or something like that back in the day, but is now here, and she does mainly like 1920s to 1950s, kind of like really older stuff. And then there is Lamia, doesn't really have the name of her shop, but she's just a seller that does like she's just experimenting with different things, artwork, like knitwork, some vintage things, and just trying to figure out what she wants to do. So she's just kind of finding herself and for the business as well, which that's really cool. And then there's also Bedfordable Boutique, which is kind of like everything else, but more pottery. And then there's Vivian Moderno, which is at the very back, which is 1960s kind of onto 1980s, kind of that era there, maybe 1950s to 1980s, and mainly women's clothing, but also some men's stuff too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a whole ecosystem going on.
Yes, yeah.
It's like a one big family.
Yeah, exactly.
Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of collectible items, I've seen a gorgeous set of pots for Gone for Tea at the entrance. What's going on there? How long has this been a thing? Have you been in Gone for Tea ever since you had your first tea?
Yeah. So when I first had that tea from Myanmar, which was a green tea that tasted like, when you walk into someone who's been smoking for years, like cigarettes, it tasted like that, which is weird for a green tea.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I hated it at first because it tasted like cigarette, and then I started to grow to love it. And after that, when I ran out of the tea, I like really loved it. I really missed it, and I was like, oh man, I need to get this tea again. So I went online, see if I could find like anything like Myanmar green tea, and a lot of things were coming up, but I wasn't really sure. So I found a subreddit called r/tea, very simple, and I asked, does anyone know about this tea, whatever, Myanmar, and I got like a bunch of replies, and people being like, oh, like try this one, try this one, try this one, try this vendor, try this vendor. And so at that point, I started like looking at the rest of the subreddit, and at that point in time, I don't really know what it's like now, but at that point in time, there was a lot of Gong Fu tea being talked about on that subreddit, and so I just started to fall in love with that, the aesthetics of that, and so I tried it for myself. My brother had brought back a tea set from Korea, which is not at all Gong Fu tea. It's very different, but it was like similar enough that I was like, okay, I can try it in this, and so I started using that, and then I moved I eventually got my own gaiwan, and that was revolutionary. I started trying all these different things. I ordered from this vendor and this vendor and all the classics. Yunnan sourcing, white 2T, bitter leaf teas, Watcha, like all these kind of classic tea shops the Western people know about because they're like Western facing vendors, and they're the big ones. Crimson Lotus tea, floating leaves tea. They're big for me anyway, and definitely inspirations. So I started to experiment more and more with that, and then I bought teapot after teapot after teapot. And once you buy a couple of proper Yixing teapots or Chaozhou red clay pots, you want to try something a little bit different as well. So I got some pottery from I think his name is Anton Oshtok. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I don't speak Russian, but he has some beautiful stuff, very natural. He uses like coral hand pieces and like wood in his pottery. I also got something from Mark Moeller, which is Sanguine Teapots on Instagram. He does amazing stuff. He trained in Taiwan, and so he has some really, really cool, intricate pieces of work. So yeah, you start really falling into. Not only was I falling into the tea rabbit hole, but also the pottery rabbit hole. So I started just collecting from all these different people, and I wish I could keep collecting. I don't necessarily have the money for it now. They get kind of expensive, but yeah.
That sounds lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you find the tea taste in different teapots? Does it make a difference?
Yes. It's subtle. It's not as different as people might make it out to be. The main difference I find is not in taste but in texture. So if I were to brew in, my red clay teapot, I'm brewing like a black tea, for example, I find that it ends up being a little creamier. So if I find that the tea needs that, then I'll brew it in that. But it doesn't necessarily always make it better. It makes it different. So sometimes I might not be looking for a creamier mouthfeel on that tea. I might want to taste it more naked, so to speak, like how it's supposed to be, brewed. So I'll use like a white porcelain or something like that, which is very neutral. And so it kind of depends. The different clays will alter the taste and mainly the texture of the tea, but it depends on what you're looking for. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better. So that's also a thing. And on top of that, gaiwans pour a lot quicker than teapots do. So it's also going to be steeping a little bit longer in a like Chaozhou red clay teapot. That's also something to look out for. So yeah, that's kind of what I say to that. There's definitely a noticeable texture. It's just it's also not as different as people will make it out to be. Like if you're not really paying attention, you're probably not going to know or care.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's peculiar. That's good that you have a selection of, those teapots here. Because, people can have tea that tastes different.
Yes.
For different brews.
Yeah.
It's very smart.
Yeah, so I wanted people to be able to, if they're brewing them for themselves, they don't get my teapots because I don't trust the people with that. But if I'm brewing for them, then, they can try like a black tea. They can try it in my red clay teapot. I have Yixing teapots for rock oolong teas, which I don't have anything in the shop right now, but on our kind of more private menu, we do have rock oolong tea. And then, pu'er teas are brewed in my Anton Oshtok clay pot. So it's just, and I think that's terracotta. So yeah, it's cool that people can try it in different ways, for sure. That's kind of what our intention was, that they could try it in a clay teapot that's been used multiple times to see if it really makes a difference. Should they buy a teapot other than the fact that it looks nice? And honestly, you should buy it for the fact that it looks nice. That's why you buy a teapot. It shouldn't be to change the taste of the tea. That's just a bonus.
Okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. Lots of new things. I didn't really, realize it was such a drastic change in the texture of tea in different teapots before. And
Yeah.
very, very nice to learn new things.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Let's see. Austin, how are we doing there? It's been 1 hour of recording.
Goddamn.
That sounds lovely. I think.
How long do you guys usually go for this?
I think last one was about 50 minutes.
5-0?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thing is, I have to edit all of this too, so that's gonna be fun. Do you want to wrap this here for today?
Sure.
Maybe in a couple of months, come back and do another sesh.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure,
Yeah.
Adam. And how can people find this place again?
All right, so if you are looking for this place, first of all, you can go online, www.easternteabar.com. We have amazing teas. We deliver for free in the HRM, usually the same day, if not the day afterwards, so like it's really nice. But if you're looking to come in and try a tea, then Gottingen Street, 2093. We're kind of closer to the Citadel. We're right above the Independent Mercantile, and we're very unassuming. Look for the sign that has something that says Tea Vintage Records. It might have some kind of lyric on it or something to try to get you up the stairs. Fairy lights going up the stairs. So 2093 Eastern Tea Bar on Gottingen Street.
Awesome. Well, that's my pleasure for you being here. Thanks a lot for talking to us.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
And hope people come.
Yeah.
And see for themselves. Cause it's a very nice place.
Yeah, I'd love to make tea for you guys. So yeah.
Yeah, already. Well, thanks a lot.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool beans.
Cool beans.